But, Little Flower, can you tell us what are the important things that you should include in your book report? What are like some really important details?
The setting.
Setting.
The characters.
Okay, so we have where, who.
And what happened.
What happened? What else? Who, where, what.
Maybe you could include when did it happen? Like
when did it happen,
the
friends?
1883?
Oh, in 1883? Sure, why not? It could be then. What else? Who, what, when, and where.
And how did it happen?
How did it happen? Do you ever include like how you feel about what happened?
Yeah.
Sometimes, right? Yeah. So,
to include that.
Your clues are to use Post-it notes to give you ideas. Do you leave those Post-it notes in the book where you found that idea so that you can go back to it later?
Yes.
Okay. What else do? You said you use Post-it notes. Sometimes do you write like in a notebook or do you... What happens if you don't have a Post-it?
Then if you are allowed to use scissors under parental supervision, and you get some paper, you can actually, and then a crayon, you can actually trace out little squares, and then you can cut them, and then you can put them in your book.
Great idea. What suggestions do you have for people who feel like reading the book is too much to do in one sitting, or this is a lot of work for a little kid? What suggestions do you have?
I would suggest doing, if it has chapters, doing it chapter by chapter.
Okay.
Or if you have like a recommendation of which pages to put, like those little cards that you can make.
Okay. Do you remember you and Mommy sat down in the beginning of the year and we kind of came up with what I like to call a plan of work or a plan of action, but it's kind of laid out week by week, right?
Yeah.
So do we like read the whole book and then hurry up and do our book report? How do we do it?
We do it part by part, and then we write a little, part by part, write a little.
Okay, that's a great idea. And then this way, do you feel overwhelmed or do you feel like that's a good way to do it?
I feel like, personally, I think that that's a good...
Okay, so we were talking about doing your book report in little chunks, right, Little Flower, so that you don't feel overwhelmed. Do you have any suggestions for kids who maybe don't feel like reading their book report? What other ways can you access the books? What have you done in the past? I can think of two other ways.
I have either listened to it on maybe the website that you're watching us right now.
YouTube. Or
just go on the internet trying to find the book, like a flip through.
Okay. We also have done Audible in the past where you can kind of just listen to a reader who has professionally read the book, or read it with your mom or dad or an older sibling, and that's perfectly acceptable. So any of those ways are acceptable, correct, Little Flower?
Correct.
Okay. Any other suggestions you might have for our...
Actually, yes.
Okay.
Surprisingly. If you do not think that reading the book is fun, try to turn it into a game. Like either after reading a couple of pages, reward yourself.
Okay.
Like either giving yourself a lollipop, asking a parent if you could.
Well, that's news to me. I was thinking more like read a little bit and maybe play outside, or read a little bit and go hang out with your pet for a little while or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
or hang out with your friends if you haven't played it.
I think another thing that we do as a family is as our kids read the book and do their Post-it notes or write about it in some way, shape, or form, we do what we like to call the family reading process. So what do you and I do during the writing process? As you're writing, what do you have to show me with your Post-its, and
I have to
how
show
do we
you
go
the
through?
correct punctuation, the correct spelling, which I do not like.
But we go through and we do corrections together. Yes. What else do we do? What do I always say to you? Can you make me
Proud. It doesn't have to be perfection, but at least try your best.
I think that's a really good piece of advice. I also tell our children very frequently that if you do your best, then it's something that you should be proud of. Your finished work should be something that you're proud of. And in addition to that, when we powwow, I always ask them to make sure that they should read it out loud once to see how it sounds. Because if it doesn't sound right to you, what can you do?
I could maybe fix up a couple of words, or either add like a comma or a period where it's needed.
Or maybe rearrange the sentences sometimes because you have them on the Post-it notes. So lots of times we can say, that sentence sounds funny there. Maybe I should put it in a different spot. And then magically, it sounds better. What do you think?
Good.
Any other tips and tricks or anything you would like to share? Specific to book reports, because we could be here all day if I ask Little Flower to share things. What's one last all over great piece of advice that you could give to anybody doing a book report?
If you feel like giving up, don't, because you're going to get somewhere one day with it.
That's a great piece of advice. High five. Okay, we'll be back with our Big Bear to give his idea of helpful tips and tricks for his book report. See you in a minute. Hello everyone and welcome back to Goodnight Mare. I'm here with my twin, Little Bear. Everybody always says he looks just like me. I wonder why they say that. Twins. So Little Bear is our 5th grader this year, and he is going to give some of the older kids, maybe getting there into middle school, his tips and tricks on how he likes to write his book report. And maybe it'll be useful for your student. But Little Bear, can you tell us, what do you do first? Like, what's the first thing that, your first step that you do so that you can write an excellent book report? This kid writes excellent book reports.
So first I find a motivation that I can reward myself
Okay.
with.
So A, find a motivation to complete reading your book.
Yes.
What about if you don't like reading the book? What are other ways that you can complete that part of the process?
You can find somebody else to help you read it, or
Okay.
form a book club.
Okay.
And have them read the book so that it's sort of a double take.
Okay. What about Audible?
Only certain books are on Audible, so I'd say that works sometimes.
Okay. Fair enough.
And also Audible costs money.
True story. Okay, so what's your second part of the process?
Read the book.
Read the book, people. Read the book. Any which way you can. Read it with a friend. Read it with a parent. Read it with your little Read it with your little sister or little brother. Read it with your dog.
Read it with
It
your
all
cat.
works.
Read it with your fish.
Your fish. Your fish can read. Did you know? Okay, so step 3, Little Bear. What do we do after we've read the book?
Step 3 is not after you've read the book, it's during.
Okay, what do you do?
Step 3 is either keep a mental or physical list of all the things that would be important in your book. For example, I wrote down who, when, where, how, and why on a piece of paper, and then after I finished reading the book or during reading the book, I filled in those questions, and it really helped me later on in my book report.
So, in addition to that, okay, so we do 2 different kinds of book reports with Seton. We do Saint book reports, which are a little different, and then we do normal book reports on a normal book. When you do your Saint book report, I know you have to pick character qualities. So, what kinds of things are you writing down with the character qualities?
With the character qualities, I'm still writing down the same things, but I also have to keep in mind how they use those character qualities in all of those questions. So, like, who doesn't really matter because anybody can be a saint. as long as they meet the special qualification. The way that they express those character qualities on a sheet of paper and above the question that it answers, such as who, what, when, where, how, why, you can link it to that in a certain way, such as how did this person do something? He did it with resolve. He did it with bravery.
Great idea. How does that help you with writing your rough draft? How does that outline that you're talking about, where you answer those questions and kind of keep running tabs of those character qualities or examples, how does that help you write your book report?
That is an excellent question. Because with that outline, you are basically writing your rough draft there, but in the rough draft itself, you are basically writing that with a little bit more details and how within each question.
Great. How can you expand on those details? What kind of words can you use?
You can use linking words.
Okay.
You can use adjectives, adverbs, prepositional phrases.
Okay. Those all give a little bit more oomph and quality to your writing. What about, do you use anything that you've learned in maybe some of your other subjects? Like, how can you tie in things from maybe history? Or how can you tie in things from grammar into your book report?
I'm going to use the World War II example again.
Okay, because that's something that you learned about in 5th grade.
If a saint is living in the time and place of World War II, then you can link that to your book report, because then in that case you will be able to use that both information in a set. So something you may not have known from the same book, you would have learned in history, and vice versa. So
you're linking things that you've learned about different time periods through history. You may be linking things that you've learned in grammar to use in your book report. You may be linking
places.
Or places in geography in your maps. Yeah, that's a great idea. So in addition to using what you've read in your book, you can use information that you already know from other subjects that you're learning. I think that's a great example of tying in your other subjects with what you are doing right then and there with your book report. So are there any tips and tricks for writing your rough draft besides using that outline? How do you like to write your rough draft? Do you do it all in one chunk, or do you kind of space it out?
Like I said in step 1, use your motivation. Write a paragraph and then use your motivation as your reward for writing the paragraph. I find that using the motivation helps you improve the quality of work, the speed of work, and the strength, like the effect of the work.
Okay. I like that. Do you feel like do you usually read your whole book and then write your first draft, or do you write it kind of as you go?
Sometimes I write it as you go, because when you read, because there is certain ups and downs. The upside to doing that is that you can get a head start and have more time for the beef up, which is in the next step.
Okay.
But the downside is the fact that you don't know all the information, so that could change later in the book.
Okay, so I understand where you're coming from on both accounts. However, I like it when both you and Little Flower kind of do it in the chunk process, right? So we read a little bit, we write a little bit, we read a little bit, we write a little bit, and I find that to be very helpful, even if you do learn new information. Again, those post-it notes, that outline can be really helpful, because you can then direct it back to whichever paragraph it pertains to, and really beef up that paragraph and make it a little bit more interesting in your final draft. Which Little Bear and I, we tend to do our final draft, again, as a powwow, or what we like to call writing conference, right?
Or what we like to call the beef up.
The beef up, because meat and potatoes, right? So how do we, what do we do with our beef up? What do we do? With our beef up, we add in stronger adjectives. We reference our dictionary and thesaurus for better and more better sounding words. What do you mean when you say better sounding words? Like words that
instead of saying also this and also this and also that a million times, you could say also this happened, but then this happened. And in addition, this happened.
So what you're saying is the thesaurus helps you to find new
Variety.
vocabulary.
It also helps variety.
Right, because you want your reader to be what?
Intrigued.
Intrigued. You want your reader to continue to read whatever it is that you're writing. So in using the thesaurus and in using the dictionary, which are skills that I as a parent have found our society very much lacking in, I think that we have become so used to autocorrect and our computer filling in sentences for us that we have zero knowledge anymore on how to use a thesaurus or a dictionary. They are great resources. I promise you they still exist in paper form and online form. And Little Bear is notorious for beefing up, like he likes to call it, beefing up his book report with the thesaurus. And one of the ways that I wanted to talk about, because I did mention this in our previous video, is Little Bear has access to a Chromebook. So he will frequently use his outline to type up his paragraph.
I do simple things such as check the spelling of words, make sure the spacing, correct punctuation, all of that. And then I add in things that weren't there in the first place.
Like maybe a sentence that you may have missed because you wrote it a little early by writing your rough draft as you're going through, and then, oh, you learned something else, but it really makes sense to go into this paragraph, so you go back and you add it in. And that's part of our beef up process. How do we make the connection? So when I say that, I mean, how do I get a handle of your work when you're typing it up? Do I go steal your Chromebook?
No, I use my email and I send you the link.
Right. So how are you typing this up? We're not using Microsoft Word. What do we usually use?
We usually use Google Docs because it has better resources, and on Google Docs.
In his opinion, I personally don't mind either format. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But I do agree, on Google Docs we have the functionality of being able to make suggestions.
Voice typing.
Is that how you're writing your book reports?
No.
Okay, oh my gosh, I was about to have a heart attack, you guys. I thought he was just talking into a microphone like this and is typing up for him. So Little Bear will email me his report and I will make suggestions such as punctuation. I won't tell him what punctuation is missing because I want him to figure that out on his own.
That's what makes you learn.
Right.
Mistakes make you learn.
Great piece of advice. High five. Mistakes make you learn. Even if you do something wrong 10,000 times, what has that taught you?
You haven't found a way. You haven't found the way to do it, but you found 10,000 ways how not to do it.
That's right, baby. Okay, so I'll make suggestions such as punctuation, thesaurus, dictionary, spelling. Sometimes it doesn't catch it. What other things?
Other things that you add in are sometimes simple things, such as this sentence should be here.
Right. Or move that sentence.
Or sometimes it can be something as simple as a missing capital letter.
Right. Which makes a huge difference when you're talking about somebody, right? So we want to make sure that we're teaching our kids to use the tools they have in the best way possible to come up with the best end result. Do you feel that you have grown from writing book reports from the beginning of the year till now?
Yes.
Why?
I feel that in the beginning of the year, I did not know how to even begin to write a book report.
Before you go any further on that, why didn't you know how to do a book report?
In public schools, that's just not something they teach anymore, along with cursive handwriting.
Let's continue on about your progression. So from the beginning of the year until now, have you improved in your book report writing?
Yes, at the beginning of the year, I barely knew what a book report even was.
I asked Little Flower the same question. What is one piece of general advice you could give to someone roughly your age on writing a book report?
This isn't just for writing book reports. It's also for just general in life.
Okay. He's giving life advice, people. Listen up.
This is one of the best pieces of advice anybody has ever given me.
I'm listening.
It is, do not ask why it is there. Ask why it cannot be there.
Why it cannot be there. I'm confused. Is this like a philosophical thing?
Yes.
Why it cannot be there.
Right, because in life, if something...
You mean, don't ask why it is there, but ask what would happen if it were missing.
Yes.
Okay, that's probably a better way to phrase it. Let's say that. Can you say that?
Don't ask why it's there. Ask what would happen if it wasn't there.
Got it. So this is really important. I like that. That's a great piece of advice that you've given, because sometimes the words that are not said are the ones that really need to be there. Right?
Right.
Okay. So with that, thank you, Little Bear, for all of your very valuable information. I hope that this video has made you laugh and has given you and your students maybe some insight on book report writing and book review writing. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the section below. Please don't forget to hit the little bell so that you'll be notified when we come out with new videos, and to hit the subscribe button. But for right now,
Good night.
good night!